It is your Father's good pleasure. Please be seated. Friends, what gives you pleasure? I'm asking a question. What gives you pleasure? I know, it's shocking. I'm actually asking a question. Kids, what was that? Sunshine. A good cup of tea. Oh, in England, I had a good cup of tea every day. Hugs? Mountains. What was that? Music? Dancing. Coming to church. Good food. Spicy food. What was that? Live theater. Grandchildren. Friends, how many things that give you pleasure involve people? How many of those things that give you pleasure are better when you can enjoy them with people? How many of you imagine God as taking pleasure? Sit for a moment with what the feeling of pleasure is. Call to mind what brings you pleasure. Sit with it. Have that little conversation in your head where you can imagine and evoke that feeling. Do you think of God as having that feeling? Do you think of God as one who takes pleasure? When I was in college, I read a wonderful book by a horrible theologian, and the book was called Christian Hedonism. The horrible theologian was John Piper, and if you know anything about John Piper and me, you will know why I think he is a horrible theologian. But almost every chapter of that book, until the last one, was amazing to me. He quoted the Westminster Confession, which I'm probably going to get a little bit wrong, but we are called, according to the Westminster Confession, which is the confession that Presbyterians hold to, we are called to follow God by enjoying God. It was stunning to me because it never occurred to me that we were to enjoy God. Moreover, it never occurred to me that God is supposed to enjoy us. That God enjoys God's creation, that God takes pleasure in giving us the reign of God. It isn't just obligation, it isn't duty, it is pleasure. It's a joy. It stirs up that warm and fuzzy feeling, that contented feeling, that peaceful feeling, that moment of seeing that all the world is right. God has pleasure in us. God has pleasure in the call of the Christian body to live as Christians. It's not just an abstract pleasure. It is a pleasure to give us the opportunity to live a life so different than the one that the world calls us to live. We are not in a particularly unique time right now, but I think many of us feel that it is heightened in its intensity. A time when we are taught that fear and anxiety is the basis for all of our decisions, and we must protect our own. And protecting our own means excluding those who are not our own, and we get to define who is our own in order to benefit ourselves. But this isn't new. This desire to have what we have and to keep what we have for ourselves is not new. We just heard last week the story of the rich man whose fields produce abundantly, not because he did anything in particular, but because God has made creation to be abundant, and his response to it is to say, I need to build bigger barns to keep it for myself. And we heard that difficult reminder that we cannot take it with us, friends. We cannot take it with us. And so instead of being a people that build bigger barns and bigger savings accounts and pensions, and I say that with fear and trepidation because I need my pension, we are called to be a people who give alms. It is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, so give alms. Give away what you have. Care for those in need. Friends, how pleasurable would the world be if we really believed that God will give us what we need, and maybe what we need is a little bit less than what we think we need, but that it is the pleasure of God to give good gifts to all of us. What kind of world would that enable? What kind of world would it be? Where we didn't need to worry about keeping things for ourselves, but we could give it to the hungry neighbor in need. Friends, that brings God pleasure. It brings us pleasure. Those things that give us pleasure are almost always better with another person. I say almost because I'm an introvert and I take a lot of pleasure in being by myself sometimes. But the truth is, I can only be myself well and confidently because I know my wife is coming back later today. She's off in Portland watching a soccer game with our daughter. Seattle and Portland are playing one another today. I will not tell you who I'm rooting for. But the pleasure of me being able to be alone lives within the pleasure of sharing my life with somebody generously. The pleasure that God is pleased to give us comes as we live a life free of the fear and the anxiety that so much around us says is essential for our survival. Friends, take some time to sit with what gives you pleasure. Does God dance with you? Does God sing with you? Does God walk in the mountains with you? Does God put God's feet in the water of the Puget Sound with you? Does God hang out with your grandchildren with you? Those are things that bring us and God pleasure. However you live your life, do it in a way that creates that kind of pleasure, that allows you to take the time to have that kind of pleasure. And friends, do it now. Do it now. Do not wait until tomorrow. Because we don't know what will happen tomorrow. As a matter of fact, if we listen to much of what is around us, tomorrow may be harder. And I think there's probably truth to that. This is not a Pollyanna message. This is the promise of pleasure as we live out being who God has created us to be, a people unafraid of being abandoned, unafraid of being alone, unafraid of being without community, because we have formed a community here that cares for one another, that sustains one another, and that does its best to care for those around us, even if it is only to offer cold concrete and a partial roof. It is God's good pleasure to invite us into a life where we may live generously. Somebody here has a t-shirt that says that. where we may live generously, because living generously is the heart of our baptismal call, of the call of being the people of God, of living out the reign of God, is to be generous with one another because we are not afraid. And because we know that the one who is coming, their pleasure is going to be to feed us a sumptuous feast, to sit with us and enjoy the view, to put their feet in the water and sand, to dance vigorously with us. It is God's good pleasure to give us the opportunity to live in a way that is filled with hope and joy and pleasure. May it be so.